Hello. In this session, I will be discussing the Live Terminal feature of Cortex XDR. The Live Terminal feature offers an option to investigate and respond to security events on endpoints through a remote connection facilitated by the Cortex XDR agent. With this tool, you can navigate and manage files in the file system, manage active processes, and initiate operating system or Python scripts through the terminal. I will talk about some prerequisites to using this feature, along with use cases demonstrating its capabilities. There are a couple of prerequisites that need to be fulfilled before you can start using Live Terminal. First, Live Terminal is currently only available for Cortex XDR Pro. Also, for all operating systems, endpoint activity must be reported within the last 90 minutes. This can be identified with the last seen timestamp that is listed in the endpoint details. Live Terminal is currently only available to Windows, Mac, and Linux operating systems. If all of the endpoint requirements are met, there are several ways that a live terminal session can be initiated. First off, a session can be initiated with an endpoint or IP credentials by going to Incident Response and then clicking on the live terminal. Alternatively, we can also go to Endpoints, followed by All Endpoints, and initiate a live terminal on any given endpoint. As we can see, I have a filter running for the endpoint that I would like to use for this demonstration. This endpoint is connected, running Windows 10, and has an agent version of 7.7.1, so it is able to initiate a live terminal session by right-clicking, hovering to Security Operations, and then clicking on Initiate Live Terminal. It will then attempt to initiate the connection, and if it is successful, you will see the Live Terminal menu. If the connection is successful, you should see the Live Terminal menu as seen here. As we can see, the various features Live Terminal offers are to the left here, including the Task Manager, the File Explorer, the Command Line, Python, and the PowerShell. It is important to note that if we were to exit our session, we would click on Disconnect. Once we click on Disconnect, we will be prompted whether or not we would like to download a log file containing actions initiated during our session. Along with this log file will store relevant artifacts that we marked as interesting during our session as well. So, let's start with the Task Manager. The Task Manager functions similarly to the Windows Task Manager, and this menu here reflects all of the running processes on the machine and will auto-refresh every 20 seconds. The Task Manager shows processes along with their hierarchies, their process and parent IDs, username and command line executables, and memory and CPU utilization. Along with this, we also have an on-demand refresh button at the top right, an arrow allowing us to enable and disable the auto-refresh feature, an export CSV download, which will download the processes listed here in CSV format, and a button where we can adjust the orientation of the boxes. If we were to right-click on a process, we can see that there are a variety of actions we can initiate on that process, including terminating the process, or killing the process and its hierarchy, suspending the process or pausing it and not killing its hierarchy, resuming the process, opening the process in VirusTotal or getting the wildfire verdict for malware analysis, opening the hash key of the process, adding it as an IOC, along with selecting the severity of that IOC, downloading the binary of the process, which downloads an executable of the process, along with its checksum, marking it as interesting, allowing us to see it in our post log file if we choose to download it after hitting disconnect, and finally, copying the value that we have highlighted in our cell over here. The live terminal also has access to the file directory system on the endpoint by going to the File Explorer. This acts just as the file directory system that Windows offers and typically begins at the root directory. You can double-click to navigate through each working directory you would like to access. At the top right, we can see that the buttons are similar to what we had in the Task Manager, except we can download a file to the endpoint, we can create a new directory, we can export the working directory here as a CSV, and we can change the orientation of the boxes. At the top here, we have the name of each file and folder, its creation date, the time it was last modified, how big it is, the owner of the file, and some attributes of the file. If we right-click on an individual file, we can see that we have a lot of similar things we can do to the file as we saw in the task manager. Except for this, we can rename, move, copy, download, and delete. If we were to right-click on a folder, we can see that we also have the ability to rename, move, copy, download, and delete, as well as marking as interesting or copying the value that we have highlighted. If we would like to navigate to any directory that we desire, we can enter in a directory at this top by typing it in or pasting in a directory. For this demonstration, I'll be creating a new directory on my desktop for my user. I can click on the Create Directory button and type in a name for the new directory. I'll call it Made by File Explorer. And then if I click on OK, we can see that it was created in the live terminal. And if I navigate to my virtual machine, we can see that it checks out and it was also created on my virtual machine. The command line functions as a remote Windows command prompt. Here, we can enter any commands to the command prompt we desire to respond to any actions on our endpoint. The top pane on the screen represents the terminal output, and the bottom half serves as the place for the user to enter commands. Please note that to enter commands into the terminal, we need to hit Shift and Enter to properly execute the command. We're also able to download and view a log file of any commands we entered into the terminal by clicking on the Save button at the top right. We're also able to change the theme of the terminal as well by clicking on the three dots. For example, I can just type in a echo command into the terminal, hit Shift Enter. I can also create a new folder on my desktop directory by changing my directory to the directory of my desktop I have pasted, and then piping this first command using and to mkdir, which will make a new directory, and we can call the new directory made by CLI, or command line interface, and then hit Shift and Enter. And if I go back into my endpoint, you can see that I have my new file created made by CLI. Finally, we have Python and PowerShell command or script execution capabilities. Both function similarly as script execution languages, so I'll be using Python for my demonstration. As we can see, the windows are the same as the command line window. We have the output on the top and the input at the bottom. And we can see I can just enter whatever Python command I would like at the bottom, hit Shift Enter, and get the feedback back on the top. Please note that the Python interpreter in the live terminal supports Python 3 with standard Python libraries. One advantage Python has over PowerShell in this case is that the script upload button is in the top right, where we can easily access scripts we create externally and upload it into the live terminal session. And as you can see, it copy and pastes my script onto the execution line for any final changes I would so desire. I'm importing the OS library, creating a new folder on my desktop as a variable, and calling the folder made by Python, and then actually creating that folder with mkdir. If I click Shift, or if I press rather Shift and then Enter, we can see that we didn't get an error message back, so it seems like the input was successful. And if we go to our endpoint, we can see the final folder created called Made by Python. Once we are all done, we can hit the disconnect button at the top left of the terminal menu, and here we will be prompted to save a session report. If we click on Save and open the log file, we can see everything that I did in my instance of the live terminal, and we can also see at the bottom here any artifacts that I marked interesting in the process or the task manager and the file explorer. If you want to prevent Cortex XDR from initiating live terminal remote sessions on an endpoint, you can disable this during agent installation. If you'd like to disable this feature later, you can navigate to Endpoints and All Endpoints, navigate to the endpoint that you would like to disable live terminal on, right-click it, navigate to Endpoint Control, followed by Disable Capabilities, and then click on Live Terminal. Please note that disabling capabilities on endpoints is irreversible, and to restore the capabilities, you must reinstall the agent. Please also note that disabling Live Terminal does not take effect on sessions that are in progress. In Live Terminal, we observed how it can be used as a helpful remediation tool to remotely connect to an endpoint. We learned how to use some of its utilities, such as Task Manager, File Explorer, Command Line, and Python and PowerShell script capabilities. With these tools, this provides a sophisticated way for remediation analysts to respond to and analyze cyber threats. For more information, please refer to the documentation for Cortex XDR and our live community page. Thank you, and have a great day.